Today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Deonna Kay, author of The Measure of Enough. Welcome, Deonna.
Thank you so much, Terry. I'm happy to be here.
I am super excited to have you. Loved the book. We have a lot to discuss. But before we really jump into it, I want you to give readers just a quick idea of what they're going to find when they open up the cover of Measure of Enough. The Measure of Enough.
Yes, absolutely. So The Measure of Enough is set in West Texas. I am born and raised in Texas, so it is dear and near to my heart. Everything about this book is Texan through and through. Even if you're not from Texas, we'll still let you read it.
I see.
But,
okay.
But you're going to find a story that is all about a young woman who gets a call she's estranged from her family. She gets a call that she didn't quite expect to receive to go back to her hometown. She has to struggle with, is it worth it or is it not? Because she hadn't quite had the best childhood, and she blames her mom for that. And so once she makes that tough decision, then she uncovers some secrets that she really wasn't prepared for. And maybe her childhood wasn't exactly as she had it made out in her mind.
Absolutely. I found the premise to be very fascinating. I noticed for me, like I looked at what Amazon puts it in terms of genre. And for me, I would have said it's like a woman's fiction with a hint of romance and a side of psychological thriller. I don't know. What do you classify it as? If someone says to you, okay, Deonna, what genre did you write? What do you say?
You know, I kind of make up my own, if you want me to be honest.
I know. I do the same thing. Sometimes you have to. So what do you tell them?
I tell folks it's a domestic suspense.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that's really a thing, because it seems like nowadays we come up with a new category of books every other week. But it deals so much with the family unit. Yes. and how complex our family units are, and how different everybody's family unit is. And so that's the domestic side of it. And it is a suspense book. And it does have a lot, as you know, of psychological aspects to it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah.
So I was kind of right in my assessment in terms
yes,
of,
I agree.
I see women's fiction simply because we see this strong woman character, and we see this beautiful arc where she starts in one place and she learns and she grows and she becomes and she deals with things and she ends somewhere else. And then, like I said, there's the little hint of romance, which, you know, we all like just a little hint of romance. And then that psychological suspense thriller-ish kind of like there's something else going on in the background, and it keeps rearing its ugly head. So I like that. When you were writing, did you have a genre in mind, or was the story it, and then you had to figure out where to market it?
The story was it. Yeah. And I had to figure out where to plug it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, there are definitely different ways to go about writing. And there are some people who know what they're writing when they get started, and I usually do not. I have a story, and then it's like, oh, well, that kind of fits into this category, doesn't it? So your main character, Casey, she's an independent woman. She's running an organization. She seems very sure of herself on the outside, but on the inside, she is a complete mess.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, where did this character come from? Where did the idea of Casey come from for you?
So if you know me well, which I know we just met, but if you know me well, both Casey and her mom and Aunt Jackie, all three of those characters are going to be smushed together configurations of some major women in my life.
Okay.
So we took bits and pieces of major women in my life, and myself included, and drew off of them. So it makes it pretty interesting. It made it a lot of fun to write because none of us were any one character.
Okay. Okay. So when someone's reading your book, they don't go, "Oh, this one is Deonna."
Right.
Okay. All right.
Right.
But you do find yourself in the character.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I often feel like I'm in my characters as well. And sometimes it's me as I am now, or as I used to be. Sometimes it's me as I wish I was.
Right.
This is how I wish I could act.
Thrown in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The book deals a lot with trauma. There's a lot of trauma. We touch on physical abuse. We touch on sexual abuse, alcoholism, other addictions, anxiety, depression, eating disorders. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in here. Why these topics?
So, in my writing, it is very important to me that we, particularly topics of abuse and addiction, it's really important to me that these things are portrayed fairly and in a real light. We don't sugarcoat them, and we don't over sensationalize them. I feel like a lot of times when I'm reading fiction, it's one or the other.
Right.
And having been a domestic abuse survivor, and then having had family members that have dealt with some of these other topics, or friends that have dealt with some of these other topics, then I felt like, gosh, I just wish that I wish that we would have books that would adequately depict what these things are. I mean, if it's really terrible and ugly and awful, let's call it what it is. Sometimes it's okay to make people squirm in their seat so that we can see what it really looks like. And sometimes it's okay to say that this is not something that is wrapped up at the end of a 280-page book and you tie a bow on it, because that's not real life. Some of these things are things that folks deal with forever and ever and ever. Can you improve upon it and life gets better and all of those sorts of things? Absolutely, 100%. But is it in the back of your mind? Are there things that you might be going to counseling about? Are there things that might be triggering? Also, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. As someone who spent 14 years in an emotionally abusive relationship, it's now on the other side of that. I understand that, and I call it my swamp gas, where I'm walking along and I'm fine and everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, bloop, bloop, up pops something, and it's like, where did that come from? I thought I was fine. And I am fine, but I'm not. There's still things that someone will say something to me, and my immediate reaction, and I realize that gut reaction is totally unnecessary in the situation that I'm in and with the person that I'm with. And yet it was my first response. Yes. Because, you immediately, like, you're trying to fix it and protect yourself and all of the other things. And then you realize, I don't need to be doing any of this. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. It doesn't wrap up neatly. You don't get out of a relationship like that and then everything's fine. Right. Or you don't just admit, yes, it happened, and then everything's fine. It takes a lot to be able to even talk about it again. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know that it ever really goes completely away, because it shapes part of who you are.
Absolutely. Ultimately for the better or for the worse.
Right. And you
also realize a lot about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, was there a lot of research involved in this, given that you have so many of these topics? Did you have to do a lot of research in order to make sure that you were getting the fact part of it right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I spent a lot of time doing a lot of research, speaking with, the counseling and those professionals, as well as doing a fair amount of interviewing folks who struggled with these issues.
Right. Right.
And that's part of why I put at the end of this some resources, because another goal of the book, again, although it's fiction, is to raise awareness. So if you get to the end of this book and you say, I would like for you not to say, oh, that was just such a lovely book.
Right.
But also, if you saw something in one of the characters, and not that I intend for a reader to now deem themselves a psychological professional, but if you see something in one of the characters and you say, gosh, my cousin's sister's husband's friend is exhibiting some of these really strange behaviors that I noticed, and then that character had this, then maybe I just want to keep an eye on it, or maybe I just might want to mention it or throw this phone number out to them or something.
Or maybe it's something even like, boy, I wonder if I could volunteer, or I wonder if the local women's shelter needs any towels. I mean, those kinds of things, because there's needs out there. Very early on, we see she's working with a woman who's trying to get away from her husband, and it's scary and it's ugly, and she's having to go under an assumed name, and she's hiding, and they're trying to find her a place to live. How accurate is that?
I think it's pretty accurate. In the folks that I talked with, and talking with some advocacy centers in the area, it happens pretty darn often. And the words that they gave me were a lot more often than you would like to believe.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that's really hard for people to realize. The statistics in the back of your book. So I read the story. I loved the story. I loved everything about the story. It was a good story. It did get me thinking, which was also good. And then we get to the back where you have the where you can find help if you have, a problem with this or problem with that. The number of women who have, I think it was rape, who have experienced rape or sexual abuse. I don't remember which one, or both. It was like 1 in 4. Mm-hmm. And I have 4 daughters. Right. And I immediately wanted to reach out to all 4 of them and say, which one of you is it?
It's terrifying.
It I don't know. It gave me a different look, because I know how many women I know, women friends, how many just women authors I've had on this show. And I think 1 in 4. Who are they? Because it's not like it's written on their forehead. You don't walk to the grocery store and say, there's one there. It's not like someone's missing a limb, or they're in a wheelchair, or, they have flaming purple hair that stands on end and you see them from, it's your neighbor or your friend. And it could very well be someone that you know very, very well, but you don't know that piece.
No, you don't know. And, in talking with one of the folks that I interviewed, she told me, she said, this happened to me. She was a sexual abuse survivor. And she said, this happened to me. And she said, I didn't think I would live through it, right? And she said, I didn't think I'd be able to come out on the other side of it, but I did. And she said, and then she said, once I got to a place where I felt like I could talk about it, and she said it was almost immediate. She said, call it divine intervention if you will, but she said it was almost immediate. I had another friend confide in me, hey, this happened to me. And she said, and then I was able to say, I understand. No,
Me
no, I
too.
really
Right.
do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she said, and then that kept happening. And it was terrifying how often it continues to happen years later.
Right. Right. I think the numbers went, like I said, I read the book. It was great. And then I'm reading your numbers and I thought, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm not stupid. I know it's a problem.
Right.
I'm aware, having
When
been
you
in an
get
abusive.
25%.
Yeah. It's like 1 in 4 when you say 1 in 4, and I have, 3 daughters and a daughter-in-law, right? That means one of them.
One of them.
Now, of course, not necessarily. I mean, I understand how, but still, when you start thinking in numbers that you can conceptualize, we're not talking 1 in 10,000. We're not talking 1 in some number that is very hard in your mind to, I don't know, visualize.
Right.
1 in 4, you can visualize it. You can hold up 4 fingers, one of those. I mean, I don't know. I think that was just, it was very frightening to me to realize, you want to believe that you don't live in a world that has that much violence, and yet it does. And I think then the other thing that was surprising to me was that I always worry about strangers. And yet, what was it? 90% of all sexual abuse is perpetrated by someone you know.
Yeah. Intimate partner violence. Yeah. It's usually somebody that you know, and, more times than not, it's a partner. Not always, but more times than not,
Yeah.
it is a partner.
And this is not to say as women that we shouldn't be aware of our surroundings and et cetera. But the truth is it's more likely to happen when you least expect it, because it's someone that you know and someone you've allowed into your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's much more likely to happen than some stranger who decides that you're the one.
Right. And what we preach to our kids is stranger danger, stranger danger.
Right.
But, I think, and it's hard. It's hard, especially with teens and things like that too, because we're saying stranger danger, but you don't teach kids to be wary of Uncle Bob or the neighbor down the street or anything like that. So I mean, how many times have I've been guilty of it as a parent? How many times have we been guilty of, well, why aren't you hugging
right
so and so?
Give them a hug. Give them a hug. Say thank you. Give them a hug. Yeah.
I mean, that's especially in the South. I'm going to be honest, like especially in the South, that's what we do. We're huggers.
We're huggers. We walk up and we give each other a kiss on the cheek and we hug, and it's what we do. And when Uncle Joe comes over and wants to put his slobbery lips all over your face, you let him, because that's what you do.
Don't be rude about it.
Right. So yeah, it is true. I found that to be very interesting. When you're writing, are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Are you a combination? How does that work for you?
Well, now let me tell you a story. So, book 1, I was 100% a pantser.
Mm-hmm.
But there is also a reason that book 1 took me a little over 5 years to write, because I was a strict pantser. And if anybody out there listening needs to know any mistake you could possibly make when writing a book, just go ahead and email me.
Because you've done it?
I will tell you. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful.
Book 2, which is in editing right now, I am a rough plotter.
Okay.
I still cannot, I'm not that kind of person that can sit down and make a real pretty outline and those kinds of things. Now, my writing partner, she is the prettiest outliner you've ever seen in your entire life. And she and I could not be more opposite. She will make this perfect outline, and she probably has a reason. She gets her book much faster. But so the second book, it did go quicker, but it was also my second book. But
Right.
But I made a rough outline. But this one,
The first one was pants. So I'm a pantser.
yes.
I'm very much a pantser. I have
Mhm.
tried outlining. I've tried several forms of outlining.
Mhm.
I can't find one that suits me at all. In
Yes.
fact, this last time I tried a very loose, I did Pete, something saves the cat.
Oh,
Save the cat.
why is
Save
that?
the cat.
I know
something.
exactly what saves the cat.
You know what I mean? Okay. I tried to use that outline, but in a very just kind of nebulous
Mhm.
form. Like, just keep it in mind, Terry. You don't have to, even that caused me to lose my character's voice to the point that I threw out almost 30,000 words.
Oh,
I
wow.
hated everything that I wrote. I hated it. So I am such a pantser. However, I do plot. I just plot backwards. Once I've got my pantsing yuck out,
Okay.
I call it word vomit, and it's terrible, and no one's allowed to see it. Then I go back and I find all of the places that I'm going to have to fix in order to make it actually into a story that makes sense. So
Okay.
I don't try to do any wordsmithing when I'm writing. I go ahead and write, and I can get 50, 60, 70,000 words out in 3 or 4 weeks if I'm just writing, if I can just sit down and write.
Okay.
But they're no good.
Yeah.
But now the story is out. And so really what it is now is a very fleshed out but ugly outline. And now I go back and I play around with it and I get it, and then I freshen it, and then I work on it. And so I have just a different process. But I don't think there's anything to apologize about if you're a pantser. I just think that it's just a very different process. It looks different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this worked for me this time because by profession that pays the mortgage, I'm a CPA.
Uh-huh.
So this was basically a spreadsheet outline where
Okay.
it was just super quick, like 50-foot, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and then like hitting some highlights of kind of what I wanted there. And so that worked for me. And then
I may have to try something like that. Maybe that would be, yeah. My characters have the tendency to stand back and glare at me and tap their foot and say, "You let me know when you're done playing this stupid game, and then we'll start telling you again what's going to happen." Because I'll say, "Ooh, this sounds good," and they're like, "No, we won't do that. We're not participating in this." And it's like, no, it will be fun.
You're not playing your game.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, we're not playing. I can just hear them looking at me going, bless her heart. She's just, she thinks she knows what she's doing and that she's in charge. So
those are our 3 favorite words here in the South, aren't they?
Bless her heart. Bless her heart. Bless her tiny little heart. So what does your writing life look like? You alluded to the fact that you have a paying job that pays the bills. And so are you able to write every day? Do you have a certain days of the week that you write? Are you more free form about it? What's writing life look like for Deonna?
So when I am writing, so when I'm crafting the novel, I can't help myself. I have to write it. Once it starts, it can't stop. So my best writing times are early in the morning. I am very much an early riser, but I turn into a pumpkin by about 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So I do not mind getting up at 4 a.m. Just don't call me after 9 p.m. So I will get up early, write for a couple of hours before I start getting ready for the office. And that's a pretty much every morning kind of thing. Now, once we get into the editing process, that slows down for me a little bit. And so then that looks like 2 or 3 mornings a week until I get it done.
Okay. Yeah. I think I feel the same way when I'm in that writing mode, when the creativity is happening. I kind of want to tell everybody to go away, and I would like to write for hours on end. And I'm sure you wish you didn't have to go into your job so you could just say, let me write. This is what I want to do. Editing for me is not, I don't enjoy it as much. I mean, I like it because I like what comes from it. Mm-hmm. I'm always very grateful to see what it looks like once the editing happens, but the editing isn't that free creativity process that feels good. Editing doesn't ever feel as good to me. It feels a little more like a chore. Yeah. It feels a little more chore-like, a little more like toilet cleaning, like it's got to be done. We're really happy when it's done, but who really likes doing it? That's kind of the way I feel about it. Absolutely. Right. You have alluded to the fact that you are writing next. Is it another book with Casey? Is it a sequel, or is it something completely different?
Nope, it's completely different. It's a standalone. It's completely different, and I'm super excited about it.
Can you let us in a little bit on what it is, or are you keeping it under your belt at the moment?
It is. It's also in that it's probably a little more in the true psychological fiction realm, and then kind of similar to The Measure of Enough. It also, which you'll probably see ring true on all of my books. It's one of my goals is not just with The Measure of Enough, but as I continue to write, it will be also to bring to light another area of humanity that I feel like we need to
discover. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I love that. Do you have any inclination as to when you think this one might be ready for human consumption?
I am hoping around the first of the year.
Oh, fantastic. So relatively soon.
Yes.
For those of you who don't write, and it is currently September, and she's saying the first of the year, that is really fast, actually, to be able to say that's where we are. So you're pretty far along in the process at this point.
Yes. Yeah. That is, fingers crossed. That is what I'm hoping.
Wonderful. Does it have a title yet?
It does not. Somebody asked me that. I did a book talk at a local library last week, and somebody said, "Can you share the title with us?" And I said, "Well, we could have a raffle for what it was going to be, but right now it's called Book 2.
Right. I understand that. How do you feel about titles? I hate them. I hate coming up with a title.
Yes, because I'll tell you, The Measure of Enough, the entire time it was being written, keep in mind, a little over 5 years, it was called Enough. And then that really famous political-based book entitled Enough came out right about the time I was ready to release this.
And so you had to change things. Yeah.
And I said, well, I mean, you don't have to, but
no, you don't have to, but you have to.
Connotations, right?
Well, and not only that, but now market-wise, you would be trying to compete with a book that's likely to get far more hits than yours because of And so now you have to figure out, now what are we going to do? Right.
Yes.
I have trouble trying to take, 70, 80, 90,000 words and sum it up in 1 to 5.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I don't know. I've said to my editor, I would rather write 2 more manuscripts than come up with a title. My first book, I really thought it would come out with Untitled or You Name It by Terry M. Brown. I could not. Book 1. Here it is. Read it. It was just, I find titles to be a very, very difficult thing. And usually my working title is nowhere close to what my final title is.
Yes.
Yeah. But you at least have the word enough in both of them. So that's fantastic.
Well, I sent it out to about 5 of my beta readers. And I said, okay, here are 3 options. What do you guys think? Or if you have something better, let me know.
Right.
But my prerequisite is I need to keep the word enough in it. And this was actually a suggestion that was not on my 3 titles from one of those beta readers. She was like, what about the measure of enough? I love that. Let's go with that.
I know. Isn't it funny? Because I had some of my readers helped me with my 3rd book. I had some vague ideas and I threw them out there, and someone came back with, they didn't give me the title, but they gave me how I found my title. But it was like, because I have, mine is The Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. Mm-hmm. And several people kept saying Daughters of the Mountain, Daughters of the Mountain. And I thought, it's okay. It doesn't really do anything. And this woman says, most of those mountains have names, even if they're just locally known. And this was a real place in North Carolina. In my mind, it was, this little holler near Burnsville, North Carolina. So I pulled up a map and started looking at all the little mountain names. And one of them was Green Mountain Gap. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's it. But yeah, because I don't know. I just don't do it well. So I understand why it's book 2 right now. I get it. That's wonderful. So, hey guys, if you want to continue this conversation, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you're going to have a chance to win a digital copy of The Measure of Enough. Find our post, tell us something that you liked or loved, and you will be in the running. So, Deonna, if someone wanted to get up with you, talk with you about this book, talk with you about the topics that you brought up, with the sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental health issues, etc. How do they do that? What's the best way to reach you?
So you can find me on my website, which is just www.deonnakay.com. Also on my Instagram is Deonna Kay Books, or my Facebook is Deonna Kay Author. Or you can feel free to email me at deonnakaybooks@gmail.com.
Fantastic. And guys, I'll have all of that in the show notes, so you'll be able to reach right out to her. Run out, grab yourself a copy of The Measure of Enough. Fabulous book. You will not be sad that you picked it up. Make sure after you read it, that you review it, because as authors, we love a good review. And Deonna, I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Terry. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.